You're heating it and then you're pushing the angle out.
If you guys ever feel like you could use more training, you're ever interested in doing hands-on training, reach out to Thad or Mike, and they'll be happy to set that up for you. We do plenty of Teslas in this shop. We run through Model 3s, Model Ys. We also remove panels, we remove door seals, and we do a lot of extra stuff that a lot of other shops don't do. I've seen a lot of people come through who are just afraid of breaking something. As long as it's done in the right way, you're taught how to do it properly, you'll be more than confident to get it done. So reach out to Mike, reach out to Thad. We'll be happy to work with any training. Hey guys, this is Gil here from Sunstoppers Lake Norman. I'm giving you guys a quick rundown, a quick video showing you kind of the process that I use to shrink the sunroofs here on the Tesla Model Y. This is already a pre-cut pattern. We plotted it and then we just kind of trimmed it out. Left about an inch all around. It's about as much as you need. And I did bounce using dryer sheets. So this is a dry shrink. So we're gonna try to center the tint as much as we can. You can usually see the edges on the glass. You can't, just try to get it as even as possible. With these, we're gonna shrink to the size since we're using a 60-inch roll. So we start with a line down the middle and then we divide our fingers as much as we can, spread them out. With my method, I don't normally do an H pattern, which is what this is right here. I like to keep as much tension open as possible. You'll see why. Okay. So with these, if you notice, most of the tension is gonna be at the front. As you can see, the fingers get smaller as you go to the back, so my tip, start at the front, work towards the back. It might look a little bit silly that I'm all the way up here. This is done on purpose. With these windows, the higher you are, the more you float the air over the top, the easier the shrink will be for you. And just work your way from the front to the back, just floating it. As you can see, the angle that I'm using with this heat gun, it kind of just lets the film lay down by itself while I'm coming here behind with this hard card. It's just kind of setting everything down. Pushing everything down to the middle. And as you can see, I never go too far ahead. Get me a little bit down and then come back and get the back down as well. You always want to try to stay as even as possible as well. But as you can see, as the front starts laying down, the back a little bit easier. We'll just start laying down for you. Just make sure you're watching the film. Basically, we don't ever want to heat the film directly down. The heat will focus in that area as opposed to spreading out. When you heat it at the angle that I'm heating it at, you hit all of the film together as opposed to just hitting certain spots, so it helps it all lay down as opposed to just focusing the heat in one area and it just basically wanted to focus all of the tension there. So the more you spread the heat, the more you move your air, the more your film is going to be allowed to kind of just release the stress. That's also why I don't use the H pattern on these. It helps leaving this extra little stress for my film to kind of just lay down on it. Remember, as long as you're not pushing this way, you're not creating any new fingers. You're just moving the tension down to where you need it. This may look extremely easy, but these windows can be some of the more difficult windows out there to shrink. Sometimes once you get closer to the end, you want to get a little excited. You spend a little too much time on certain areas. Just remember to keep your heat moving. And the film will literally just lay down for you. All I'm coming down with this card is I'm just setting everything down into place. And just like that, we got one side finish. Now this time we're going to be working on the shrinking the front windshield on a Tesla Model Y. Same concept as before. We're doing a dry shrink method. So we basically clean the window with water and alcohol and then use a dryer sheet to bounce it. Everything is nice and dry, so we're going to start by laying the pattern out. We are using a pre-cut pattern from Expel. We did trim it down to about an inch, just like last time with the sunroof. So it gives you a little bit of room to work with. Generally, some people do like to get it peeled off, get it weeded out. I find that the liner tends to burn a little bit faster than the normal tint. So it's honestly all up to preference, but this is the way I do it. We're gonna start by basically laying out the film in the middle. This one's pretty easy to see where our guides are, our lines. So we're just gonna get equal lining all around. And I didn't explain this last time, but when you lay a film out in the glass, you're gonna see the natural shape of where it needs to go. So if you see right here, you're gonna see basically where the fingers start to spread out into two different directions. That's normally where I like to put my middle line, my tack line, because that tells me this is where the flattest part of the glass is. So everything from here on out is gonna be spread into two. So we're gonna do the same. We're just gonna put a line down the middle, all the way across. And this time I do a small H pattern, maybe about 2 inches down, 2 inches up, kind of to just shape our fingers a little bit. Now we're gonna go on the other side and do the same thing. Finish our line down the middle, about 2 inches up, 2 inches down. Basically that just helps us shape our fingers so that we have orientation up and orientation down. You don't wanna have any side fingers because otherwise you're gonna make your film shrink in the direction it's not supposed to shrink. Same concept as before. We always want to start at an angle to where almost all of the film is getting hit. You don't want to focus any heat at a certain area because otherwise you'll heat that area only as opposed to spreading the heat. The best way to shrink anything is spreading the heat out as much as possible because you'll see how once the heat is evenly spaced out, the film will just naturally want to lay down. The angle of your heat gun has a lot to do with how your film is going to lay down on you. As you can see, the film just naturally wants to lay down. When I do this, I'm just using my hand to shape my fingers to make sure that all my fingers are staying facing down and going one direction. Same here, we're always just wanting to push our fingers down. And the film will just naturally lay down for you. It's important that you always keep your heat moving, spreading out all of that hot air, making sure that the film is evenly heated. Once we get to the bottom, you can focus the heat a little bit more to float it down on the bottom to kind of just get all of those fingers to sit down. Nice and easy. Take your time, keep your heat gun moving. Okay, so when it comes to shrinking the top side of these windshields, I have seen more of a curve when it comes to this top edge, and you're gonna see it on both sides. So normally the way I tackle this is like I was doing before. I have my modified H right here, about 2 inches. And when I'm adding heat, the way I'm adding heat is I'm heating it up and then pushing the tension where I need to go. So I'm pushing my fingers towards the middle. The angle of my card is basically going inwards. And what that's doing is it's letting the film get complete heat, but it's also allowing the fingers that I'm creating to be pushed to where they need to go, as opposed to them focusing on the side and becoming side fingers. So just kind of watch how I do that. I just wanted to explain it a little bit before I start doing this with the heat gun on. But basically you want to start heating it slowly, getting your air all across the film, making sure that it's getting some even heat. And once you get to the corners, you're going to start pushing it up. So there's that angle that I was saying. You're heating it and then you're pushing the angle out. So you're creating the fingers. You see the fingers, and then you're pushing them up and away out. And so now we have this whole side taken care of, and now we can just shrink the other side just like normal. That's where I've seen a couple people struggling with when it comes to these, especially once you do the normal H pattern. You tend to have a lot of tension right in this area. If you just give yourself a little bit of space, you can spread the tension out. You won't have to focus on shrinking such huge fingers. And then the rest of the window just becomes like a normal windshield where you can just take your time and shrink it up and out. And there we go. It's a Model Y windshield.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay, so after we finish shrinking the windshield, we're gonna go ahead and roll it up. Get our outside of the window cleaned up. And this is where you always wanna make sure your windshield is clean on the outside. That way, anything that's left on the windshield, it'll be easier to decipher whether it's dirt that's on the inside or the outside. So always clean space, always a clean space. Just gonna get this whole peel board nice and wet so that we can set our windshield on there. And now I'm doing it backwards so I can weed it out. Remember I said I did use a plot cut, so we're gonna need to weed it. This is Expel's pattern. Expel's pattern when it comes to windshields, especially for the Model 3s or the Model Ys, they tend to fit extremely well. So there's no reason why you shouldn't use a plotter cut. It'll make your job easier, it'll make your life easier. So we're gonna take it, we're gonna turn it around. And then we're just gonna set it here while we work on the window. We're gonna get it nice and clean. And then we'll be back, show you guys how I roll this up and how I install it. So now that we've gotten our front windshield shrunk, we got our front windshield clean, the outside, we're gonna move into the inside and start doing our prep so that we can get this windshield installed. So a couple steps you need to do before you start putting any water in here, just to avoid any sort of liabilities. Soak towel, soak rope. So with the soak rope, I like to start one end, run my hand all the way down. There we go. You're always gonna have a little bit of excess. It's fine. And then come in with a tool and just tuck it in there. That way it's not gonna mess with your install. Give yourself enough space to work with, but also keeping all of the electronics dry. Gonna get it nice and tucked in there. There we go. Step 2, we want to take a towel, dash towel, cover as much as we can. The more you can get covered, the better. Then I usually like to take one of my green little cards and tuck it into the panels just so that I know that this isn't going to go anywhere. Make sure the screen is covered, make sure the wheel is covered. So then you're going to come up to the mirror, and this plastic actually does pop up. We're going to get one clip, and then we're going to get another clip. So now what that allows us to do is we're going to take some tape, longer piece of tape.
So I've got a 2014 Jeep Cherokee, and I want to
So there's one strip. I normally like to do 2 strips just to make sure that we get everything nice and away from the window. Just want to get it as far away from the glass as possible. And once we finish, this literally just peels right back, and then you can just pop it right back in. Nice and easy. There we go. Awesome. All right, so now that we got everything prepped, we're gonna start cleaning. So when it comes to cleaning, I actually use ATR diluted with half water. I know this is not conventional, this is not really glue, but we found that ATR, and we actually prep both our front windshields and our back windows with ATR, 50-50 mix. And we've just found that using the ATR as a cleaning solution works extremely well and has gotten us some of the best results as far as cleanliness goes. So yeah, little trade secret right there. So we're gonna do a light little spray, making sure that we're coming back afterwards, wiping any excess off of the panels. We always just want to keep moisture to a minimum. And then I like to come back and then spray it with my regular soap and water afterwards, just so we can get a further dilution. Let it sit for a few seconds. And then we'll just come in with our squeegees or scrub pads and just scrub this window. I like just using regular scrub pads. I found that normally with these, anything on the window, you will usually feel it. These are thin enough that if there's any grime on the window that needs to be razor bladed, you'll feel it through. So just kind of feel for those little bumps on the glass. This glass is actually pretty clean. It's a brand new Tesla. I don't see any issues so far. Everything is nice and clean. Sometimes quality control with these cars isn't the greatest, but this one's in pretty good shape. We're just gonna get a nice scrub on all the window, make sure we're getting every inch of it. That way, if there's anything on the glass, we'll feel it with our scrub pad. There we go. Then we'll come back with more soap and water. A nice mist on it again. And once again, I like to wipe my panels religiously. Just helps keep moisture to a minimum. Then we'll come back and get everything nice and squeegeed out. And this is where you want to make sure you're doing perfect even strokes in case you missed anything. This is where you'll see it. This is why it's also important that you have a clean outside window. If there's ever anything that you missed, it's easier to tell whether it's inside or outside. Awesome. We got a nice clean window. Let's go ahead and get the film in here. So now we're here with the windshield. So the first thing I do, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna spray the outside again to kind of get it prepared. You want it to be nice and slick so that when you're rolling it, it doesn't want to stick on you. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna find one corner and spray as we're peeling. I like to do a little bit more than half on the first one, just so that we have a little bit more grip on one side than the other. And then we'll come back and then just lay it all down. We have one side, we'll come back and we'll do the second side just the same way. Find your corner, peel it. Spray as you're peeling, that way you don't have as little chance for dirt to get in there as possible. And then we're going to keep peeling until we reach the other side. And now we can close them. All right. So I like to start on the driver's side. So I go passenger to driver. So this is driver, passenger. So I'm going to start my roll on this side, so that when I'm laying my film down, it'll be passenger side first. And this is why I say make sure that it's nice and wet on the outside so that you can get your roll as tight as possible. This is what's gonna help your film kind of slide into place. Just pull as you roll it. Once you get about halfway, you can pull it off the glass and then just continue the rest of the roll. Nice and easy. And always make sure that once you get to your mirror, that the film is rolling still with you. You're gonna see the liner wants to move a little bit sometimes. Just make sure that it's still moving with the film. You're not making any creases. There we go. I like rolling mine all the way, just so I can have all that excess moisture and just dump it out. And then we're going back to the inside. All right, so once we're on the inside, we have our roll. We're gonna start this side, we're gonna go this way. So we're gonna take our water, and this is just where I barely missed it. The window is clean. There's a lot of water on my film as well. There's no need for an excessive soak on the glass. You just needed to be able to hold the film on there. So, and this is, and I will say this, I do make this look easier than it is. I definitely recommend doing hands-on with these kind of things. Once it comes to the installation method, it's a lot of little things that can't be captured on video. I'm gonna try my best to explain it, but like I said, this is one of those things where hands-on really makes a difference. If you wanna spend some time with me, I'm more than happy to show anyone how to do this. I've been doing training for a while, so this is something I would definitely be happy helping you guys. So, but once we got the window wet, we got it moist, we're gonna take a little bit, I like to do about 5-6 inches, and then we're gonna peel it back. And this is all we're gonna work with right here. This is our main focus. Our main focus is getting this whole thing to lay down in there, flushed. What does flush mean? That means that we're gonna get it to where it needs to be, basically covering all of that glass, all of the outline that it needs to go to. And this is all I'm focusing in. I don't let more than just 5-6 inches out, and I make sure that that whole side, this whole 4 or 5 inches is down completely first before I even start doing anything else. Because once I get this side down, everything else will be easier. So here we go. Now it's all just about letting the film just roll in your hands. Pay extra attention when you get to the mirror. You do have enough film to go under it and then tuck it up. So get it down around the mirror, nice and flushed, and then come back up on it. I have my hand right here, that way it'll keep the film from wanting to come back any further. I'll peel the rest of the liner, move my film to a spot where it'll be past the glass right here, and now I can just tuck in. And because I have my mirror raised, the chances of me catching any lint from that mirror have significantly gone down. So what we're gonna come back here now to do is squeegee it out. When it comes to squeegeeing, you always want to do your first squeegee exactly the same way as you do your shrinking. So for me, I put a line down the middle and then I went up and down. So I put a line down the middle and I went up and down. Just barely any pressure. All I want to do is basically set my film down. I'm just letting my squeegee basically float on the glass with barely any pressure. Because that'll also allow me to see if I have any extra tension in certain spots, and it'll allow me to push the tension away from those spots. There we go. We take a quick look, everything is good, nothing is moving, everything is set into place. Now we come back with our harder squeegee. For this, I like using either a sledgehammer or a red fusion. Both of them will do very well. Always wiping our panels, making sure everything stays nice and dry. And then this is where we come in with our hard squeegee. Now that everything is set, we know that everything isn't gonna move anymore. We can come down with a little bit more pressure. Everything looks nice and clean. The mirror looks nice and clean. Once you come back with your second squeegee, normally I find that's usually more than enough, especially with a squeegee like these. Harder squeegees usually push out a lot of water. I'll come around with a side card to get all the edges, but that's pretty much it. Just make sure everything is nice and dry. Get around those windows, get around those mirrors. But that's basically how we do a Model Y windshield. All right, guys, so now we're gonna be working on the sunroof. The biggest thing about the sunroof is, honestly, this is one of those things where it's gonna be hands-on. It's extremely difficult to explain the process of putting this sunroof in. Usually you need two people to do something like this. You're gonna see some shots of us getting it in here. The biggest thing to look for is just watch those corners, how they go in. This windshield, the sunroof, excuse me, does go in extremely deep into the panels. So you're gonna be doing some tucking in. Normally we pull panels or top panels for these. It's just an easier method. It gives you more space to work with. And this is why I say it is usually better to do hands-on, because we can show you how to remove these panels. And it's not something we can just normally just talk you through. If you guys ever feel like you could use more training, you're ever interested in doing hands-on training, we'll be happy to help with any of that. Reach out to Thad or Mike, and they'll be happy to set that up for you. We do plenty of Teslas in this shop. We run through Model 3s, Model Ys. We also remove panels, we remove door seals, and we do a lot of extra stuff that a lot of other shops don't do. And we'd be happy to work you through all of that, show you how it's done properly. That way remove the fear of working on a car where you don't know if you can pull the panels. I've seen a lot of people come through, and as long as it's done in the right way, you're taught how to do it properly, you'll be more than confident to get it done. So reach out to Mike, reach out to Thad, we'll be happy to work with any training.